All right, folks, I think I'm live, but please confirm on chat if everything's okay, if the AV is okay. Just let me know on chat quickly, and then we can get started with the session. Is everything okay, people? Can you please confirm on chat? I think I'm also having internet issues. Hopefully, that shouldn't come in the way, but do let me know. Okay, good evening. Bharat, I'm hoping everything's okay. I can see myself on YouTube, so it should be fine, but it would still help if you can just confirm. And I have way too many windows open. Okay, it's confirmed. Thank you very much. Just give me 1 second, people. All right. Okay, great. Fantastic. Let's begin. Good evening, Rosemary, Bharat, Shubhankar, and thank you for confirming. All right, folks. So welcome to VRC Blitzkrieg. This is the fourth session that we're doing this year. Okay, I do this every Friday at 8 p.m. I think most of you would be aware of the format by now, but I'll just quickly explain it if there's someone who's new. What we do is we discuss in VRC Blitzkrieg, we're going to discuss all the questions of CAT 23. Okay, bit by bit. So we did slot one. We've completed slot one. You can watch those videos. There should be a playlist as well on our channel. So we've done slot one RCs, all the four RCs. We did slot one verbal ability as well. And now we're going to start with slot two. Okay, so how it works is when we're discussing RCs like today, it's always better that you pre-read the RCs and come prepared. Okay, so because I'll be able to give you very limited time to read, just in the interest of time. So it's best that you pre-read the RCs, okay, extract the main idea in your head, and then come prepared. Questions we'll solve together. Okay, so you don't have to solve the questions in advance. You just have to read the RCs, and we always link the document containing the RCs in the YouTube description. Okay, so currently also you can see that link in the description of this video. My team will also send that document link on chat. Just open that, and we're going to start discussing the first RC. I'll give you some time to read it. But yeah, next time, please do come prepared. All right, now, okay, that document link is there. You can open it. Now, just very quickly for non-2IM students, if you're a 2IM student, of course, this is not relevant for you. You already have the test series and everything. But if you're a non-2IM student, we have a test series. We call it Test Dojo. Okay, so this will have 26 mocks. All right, high quality mocks plus 8,000 practice questions, out of which 5,000 are at CAT level, and all the past papers since 2017 in the form of mocks. Okay, so this is available at 5,999, but we have a coupon code which will get you a ₹1,000 off, so you can get it for 4,999. Okay, and that coupon code, my team will send it, and the link of the test series as well. So if you're interested, you can enroll for it, and you can get it for 4,999. Okay, awesome. Now let's begin. So going back to my presentation, hold on. Okay, great. Right. Now, the first passage that we're going to discuss is about secondhand clothing. Of course, the title doesn't matter. Don't read it from the screen. It's incomplete. Open that document that's been sent on chat, and it's also there in the YouTube description. Open it, read the RC. Once you're done, extract the main idea in 2 to 3 sentences and send it to me on chat. Okay, that's a very important part of RC solving. So take that effort to extract the main idea in your own words and send it to me on chat, and then we'll start discussing it. I'll give you a few minutes to read it. Go for it, people. All right, folks. So I'm happy to give you more time, but again, just remember there is a time restriction here because of we're on YouTube. Do send me the main idea. I'd love to see more main ideas. I've gotten one, which I thought was on the right track. Do send me the main ideas. I'll give you maybe 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we'll start discussing. Okay. Okay, very good. I've got one from Ayush. While others are still reading, I can comment on it live. So the author discusses the impact of consumerism on climate change, also the measures that could be taken by big brands in the market to encourage people to recycle the products. Okay. All right. So Ayush, you are in the territory, okay, of the main idea. But I think there is a certain element from the main idea that's missing from yours, but you're definitely in the territory. So when you say that impact of consumerism on climate change, right, and measures that could be taken by big brands to encourage people to recycle the products, are we talking about measures that brands should take to encourage people? Think about it. Okay, so you're definitely in the territory, but I think the main idea is a little different from what you're telling me. Okay. All right. Serene Sea Monster. The author highlights the environmental friendliness of second-hand clothing and how most of part of the UK is trying to adopt it. However, the author also mentions this drawback of microfiber deposits. Nice. This is good. Yes, you've definitely hit the nail on the head. Okay. You're very much. I mean, this is actually the main idea. So well done on that. I'll talk about it again, but well done on that. Recent trends or fashion and clothing leads to overproduction and effects in destructive ways for planet. Solution for the problem would be usage of second-hand clothes to encourage that luxury brands to reduce cost. Okay, Lokesh, I'm going to encourage you to think about this. So yes, second-hand is a solution, potential solution, but is second-hand a good solution? Is that what the author is saying? Like switching to second-hand clothing. Is that a great solution to reduce environmental waste and environmental damage? Think about that, because that's a crucial element of the RC. Okay. All right. Perfect. So good stuff, folks. I mean, you're definitely in the territory. Let's do one thing. So let's now discuss the main idea. Okay. And then we'll go to the questions. So I won't discuss the passage up front in detail, because often what happens is if I do that, I'll end up giving away the answers. So I'll discuss the main idea briefly, and then we'll go to the questions. After that, you tell me if you want me to discuss the passage in detail. I'm more than happy to do that. Okay, so I'll leave that to you. All right. Okay, let's discuss the main idea now. See, and I'll just go through the passage, not like in detail, but just pick out some relevant portions and explain it, right, at a very broad level. See, the thing is, the author talks about second-hand clothing, right? That's a prominent discussion in the RC, right? People in Europe, people in the UK are buying quite a bit of second-hand clothing, right? So because here, this is where it says it's not surprisingly then that people are scrambling for a solution. So first you have to understand solution to what? What is the problem? The problem statement is in the first 2 paragraphs, right? That it says it's contributing to an industry that uses more energy than aviation, right? 300,000 tons of clothes land up in landfill, and the waste of clothing is destructive to our planet. Like, there is massive environmental damage that happens because of these clothes that land up in landfill and are not recycled. Okay, so that's the problem. The solution to that problem in the 3rd paragraph, the author says the most common of which is second-hand shopping. So second-hand shopping is considered to be a solution for this problem. That, if you buy new clothes, a lot of them land up into landfill. That causes massive environmental damage. So let's start reusing clothes. Instead of buying new clothes, let's buy second-hand clothes. So fewer clothes are in circulation, and then fewer wastage, and then environmental damage won't happen, right? So people think that this is a common solution to this particular problem. Now my question is, does the author agree with this? Does the author think that this is a good solution to reducing environmental damage due to clothes wastage? Yes or no? You can tell me in chat. Okay, and I'll continue discussing because there's a lag, right? So the second-hand shopping part, right? it says it has become a trendy practice. London is home to many second-hand or more commonly vintage shops. Then it also talks about Instagram, right? That people go and buy these second-hand clothes and put it up on Instagram saying vintage and all of that. But the question that the author asks is, without flash it on Instagram with vintage and call it a day without considering whether what they're doing is actually effective. Good, Bharat and Antariksha. Actually, no. The author doesn't think that secondhand clothing is a good solution to it. Because the author says that these people are doing it without thinking. It's become a fad, it's become a trend, like many things on Instagram, right? But people are not putting thought into it, right? And then this paragraph is extremely important as far as the main idea is concerned, where it says, according to a study commissioned by Patagonia, for instance, older clothes shed more microfibers. So older clothes can create a lot of wastage because they are older, right? So when they are, if you buy secondhand clothing, obviously it's old clothing. So then when you wash it and you launder it, it generates a lot of microfibers, which leads to a lot of waste. Okay, so older clothes, secondhand clothing is also causing environmental damage, is what the author is saying. So what is being touted as a solution to reduce clothes wastage and environmental pollution is also causing environmental pollution, right? So secondhand clothing is not a great solution, is what the author is saying. And then, of course, the author in the last paragraph talks about luxury brands and why they don't get into secondhand luxury brands. Why they don't get into secondhand model, because it's not good for the brand. They prioritize their brand. They don't want their clothes to be sold at a cheaper price and stuff like that, right? But the main idea is that secondhand clothing, this solution, this potential solution or this projected solution to reducing environmental damage due to waste is not a great solution. And why is it not a great solution? Because it also leads to environmental damage through shedding of microfibers. That is the main idea. That the solution of secondhand clothing that a lot of people consider as a great solution is not a great solution after all, because old clothes shed a lot of microfibers and that leads to environmental damage. This is the main idea. Okay, so that's why I was saying a lot of you were in the territory of that. Like Ayush was there, Lokesh was there, but Ayush and Lokesh's main idea, when I look at it, there's a critical part missing. But if I see Serene, and again, I'm not comparing, I'm just sort of giving you feedback for your improvement. Serene Sea Monster definitely hit the nail on the head with the fact that, okay, secondhand clothing is not great after all. Okay, all right, so that's what it is. That's the main idea. Any questions for the main idea, let me know, definitely. I hope this is clear. Give me a thumbs up if the main idea is clear to you, right? Again, I'm not gone into details of the passage. I've just given you the main idea, but I'm happy to do that later. Okay, so yeah, I was supposed to write the main idea here, but I wrote it there. But definitely, as we've discussed, that's the main idea. Okay, just give me a thumbs up if it's clear, and then we'll go to questions, and then I'm happy to come back and discuss the passage. Okay, all right. Keep interacting with me, folks. That's very important. Thumbs up. Santriksha saying thumbs up. Thank you. Keep interacting. It just it'll boost your learning. I always say this to my students. It's very, very important for you to interact in classes from a learning perspective, and of course it's good for me as well. Okay, all right, perfect. Let's go to question 1. Right now, take your time. I'm going to run a poll. Okay, and we'll discuss the questions in detail. You have to vote in the poll. Okay, so read the question and vote in the poll. I'll run it now. You can start solving the question. Okay, the poll is up. Take your time and vote for it. All right, folks, I'll give you, most of you have voted. I'll give you 30 more seconds and then we'll start discussing. Let me answer Ayush's question in the meantime. Ayush is asking, 3 options feel contradictory to the main idea. Okay. Should we skip it in that case? If they feel contradictory to the main idea, Ayush, then I think yeah, like, are you saying that it feels like 3 options are undermining the main idea through contradiction? Is that what you're saying? Let me know. Because if you think the 3 options are undermining it, then it's too much of a risk, right? Then you should skip the question in the exam. Okay. No, definitely. If this situation arises in the exam and you're like 3 options, I'm not able to decide between 3 options, skip that question. It's too much of a risk to take. Okay. Yeah. All right. Perfect. People, I'm going to end the poll now. Okay. All right. Let's look at it. So 50% of you said the answer is 3. Okay, just give me 1 second. Yeah, 50% of you said the answer is 3. All right. And 1 and 4 has 20%. So that's your second choice and second choice. And then 10% said 2. Okay. All right. So half of you say that 3 is the right answer. Okay. Let's look at this question and let's focus on the approach of solving this question, right? The question says the central idea of the passage would be undermined if. So this is a weakening question. Undermined is weakening. Okay, so basically it's saying which option weakens the central idea of the passage. If you want to rephrase it, and that becomes easier for you, which of the following options would weaken the central idea, would undermine the central idea? So the first step is, even before looking at the options, you should first of all remind yourself what is the central idea. Okay, first remind yourself of that. Create some sort of shadow answer in your head and then look at the options. So first of all, even before looking at the options, what is the central idea? Let's recap. The central idea was around that second-hand clothing, okay, is not a great solution. My writing is horrible. Bear with that. It's not a great solution, okay, to protecting the environment. Why? Because it second-hand clothing or old clothes release microfibers, okay, which is detrimental to the environment. This was the main idea. Okay, so now we have to look for an option that would weaken this main idea. Okay, so understand that this is the author's conclusion. The author's concluding that secondhand clothing is not a great solution, right? This is a conclusion that the author is making. What is the author basing this conclusion on? This part. So this is your premise. The author is based, you don't have to understand premise, so you can just ignore it. The author is based, so when the author is making a conclusion, the author has to give you supporting evidence, right? Or has to support. What is the author basing the conclusion on? So the author is concluding that secondhand clothing is not a great solution. Why? Because old clothes release microfibers, which causes environmental damage. This should be clear in your head. Now look for an option that weakens this. Okay, so the reason is old clothes release microfibers. If there is an option which can prevent this, then that would weaken the central idea. That would weaken the conclusion. If, let's say, I say that, no, that is wrong, old clothes don't release microfibers. Let's say, for instance, I say that. That would completely weaken the conclusion, right? Because the author is completely basing the conclusion on this, that old clothes, when washed, when laundered, release a lot of microfibers. If I can prove that they don't do that or something else, then that would weaken the central idea. I hope this is clear. Okay, so create some shadow answer in your head. Now let's look at the options. Number 1, Primark and Boohoo recycled their clothes for vintage stores. Okay, Primark and Boohoo are fast fashion brands according to the passage, right? You can see that in the first paragraph. So the option is saying they recycled their clothes for vintage stores. Okay, fine. So they are recycling. Great. But would that prevent the problem of old clothes releasing microfibers? Think about it. Primark and Boohoo are recycling the clothes for vintage stores. Fantastic, very good. But still, those clothes are old clothes, right? The ones that they will recycle and put in the vintage stores will be old clothes. If people buy that, that will still release microfibers. It will still cause environmental damage. So this doesn't undermine it. You get my point? Okay. So this is not the answer. All right. Let me know if you have questions. Customers bought all their clothes online. So what? Is that the problem? Is the problem with the medium of shopping, online or offline? Is that connected to environmental damage? No. So if customers bought all their clothes online, this would do nothing to the main idea. It's irrelevant to the main idea. We're not talking about the medium of shopping. Okay, so this wouldn't affect the main idea at all. Second-hand stores sold only high-quality clothes. Understand this. If second-hand stores are selling high-quality clothes, and per the passage, high-quality clothes are durable, right? High-quality items that shed less and last longer. Okay, so if they're selling only high-quality clothes, that means they're good quality clothes. Would they release the same amount of microfibers when they become old as opposed to normal clothes? No. These are high quality clothes. The material is good. They shed less. So even when they get older, right, they will still release fewer microfibers. So if this is true, then it would undermine the main idea that secondhand clothing is not a great solution. Because if secondhand stores start selling high quality clothes, this conclusion weakens. The author's conclusion is not as strong as before. The author's saying it's not a great solution. Now we have a solution. They're selling high quality clothes. So I'm not saying it completely, like we're saying weakened, right? We're not saying disproving. Definitely weakens the main idea. Okay, so let's park it. Clothes were not thrown and burnt in landfills. Okay, still secondhand clothing will be laundered. Still secondhand clothing will be washed and it will release microfibers. So this will not weaken the argument. This will not affect the argument. The only option that undermines the argument is when secondhand stores will start selling high quality clothes, and that's why it's the answer. Okay, I hope it's clear. Give me a thumbs up if it's clear. I need to know. You folks have been pretty quiet. It's a tricky question, folks. It's a very tricky question because first you have to figure out the central idea correctly, and then under time pressure, figure out that, okay, this is the right option. So it's a tricky question. Ayush was, I think, asking me, right? Basically, if I reframe his question, is it a good idea to take a risk with this question? No. No, absolutely no. Question selection here matters. This is not a question that you would have taken a risk with in the exam. If you were not sure, you should have just left the question, moved on. And be okay with leaving questions. I always say this, and I'll keep saying this. Just because you've spent 6 minutes on an RC reading doesn't mean you force yourself to solve all 4 questions. That's a recipe for disaster in the VRC section. Okay, that doesn't work. It works for people with high competency in VRC. Understand that. A lot of people would say this, on YouTube. No offense to them. There are some great teachers, but there are some not so great teachers. So if you are saying, oh, VRC, the strategy is to just go all out and attempt as many questions as possible, it doesn't work for everyone. If your competency is high, you can go in that direction. But if your competency is medium or low, it won't work for you. Focus on accuracy in VRC. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one. Let me know if you have any questions. Solve this one. And do your due diligence. I always say it's a best practice to go back to specific portions of the passage and confirm your answer. Do all of that and focus on accuracy here. Okay. Serene Sea Monster. All right. All right. Before we go to the second question, solve this. I'll give people time to solve it. When I close the poll, I'll discuss the question and then go to the question. Okay. All right, people, I'll give you 30 seconds. The idea is not to rush you, but just I have to be a little conscious of time. Otherwise, if I could get carried away and just like talk for 3 hours. So I have to be a little conscious. 30 more seconds. Okay. All right, let's go with last 10 seconds. Okay, so here's how you voted. 47% of you are saying 1. Okay, so this is your first choice. 23% is saying 4. 17% is saying 3. 11% is saying 2. Okay, this is how you voted. Okay, let's solve this question. Focus on the approach, because that's the whole. Of course, the question's not going to repeat, but hopefully you'll learn some approaches out of it, good approaches out of it. Okay, let's look at it. The act of thrifting, as described in the passage, can be considered ironic because it is. Okay, so this is a specific question. Whenever you have a specific question which is quoting a statement or a word of the RC, before even looking at the options, you should go back, understand the context in which it was mentioned, develop a good understanding, and then come back to the answer. So do that before even you look at the options, because the moment you look at the options, it'll start confusing you. Okay, so that's what we mean by creating a shadow answer. Now, before we even do that, what is ironic? That is very important to understand here. If you don't know ironic, right, and let's say if this was an exam, you don't know what ironic is, you shouldn't solve this question. Right? It's as simple as that. You should leave this question because you won't get it right. But irony is something that you should understand. This comes up quite a bit. It's a common thing nowadays. And irony is a common word nowadays. So understand irony, understand sarcasm, understand paradox, understand metaphor, right? You don't have to become like a expert in figures of speech. No, but these are basic things that you should understand. Okay, right. Now, what is an irony? My favorite example, and this is self-deprecating humor. It's a hypothetical situation. It's not true. But let's say if I say that, okay, Jatin did not clear the CAT VARC cutoff. Brutal irony. What is happening here? Now, I'm a verbal faculty, right? If I'm giving CAT and if I'm attempting, of course, I'm attempting the VRC section, you would expect me to score a very good percentile because I'm a teacher, right? You would expect me to score a 99 or 100 or whatever that expectation is, right? Now, that is your expectation. And that's a valid expectation. But what is the result? Completely opposite to what you were expecting. I didn't even clear the VRC cutoff. So this is an irony. So what happens in an irony is you have an expected outcome. In this case, that expectation was 9900, whatever. And then there is an actual outcome. And the actual outcome is contrasting the expected outcome. They're on opposite ends of the spectrum. So the actual outcome is opposite to the expected outcome. And often this becomes like humorous. Sometimes it can be dark humor as well. For me, this is definitely dark humor. For it might be humorous, right? But for my students also, this is dark humor. If this happens, it hasn't happened. I hope it never happens. So, but this is my favorite example. Is that clear? That's what an irony is. So when the actual outcome is opposite to the expected outcome, often leading to humorous situations. This is the most common definition of irony. There are some other definitions and nuances as well, but irony somehow has a contradiction inbuilt in it. Okay, all right. So why is thrifting being considered ironic? What was the expected outcome? What was the actual outcome? Let's go back and check. So let's check thrifting. Where is thrifting? Somewhere here, right? Okay, hold on. Where is thrifting? Where is thrifting? Assignment. Yeah, it's here. Okay. All right. So here it says, now thrifting has been mentioned here. Just don't read the word or the sentence, read the context. Okay, let's understand it. It's not surprising then that people are scrambling for a solution to that problem. Secondhand shopping is the solution that people think is a good solution. Retailers selling consigned clothing are currently expanding at a rapid rate. If everyone bought just one used item in a year, it would save 449 million pounds of waste, equivalent to the weight of 1 million polar bears. Thrifting has increasingly become a trendy practice. London is home to many secondhand or more commonly coined vintage shops across the city from Bayswater to Brixton. So thrifting is catching up in London. It's becoming a very popular choice. Why? Because people think it's a solution to reducing clothing wastage, which will protect the environment. Okay, so what is the expected outcome of thrifting? Think about it. The expected outcome of thrifting is to reduce wastage and reduce the damage to environment, isn't it? Reduce wastage, okay, and consequently reduce the damage to the environment. That's the expected outcome. What is the actual outcome? In reality, is it saving the environment? Is it reducing wastage? No, it's not. It's creating a lot of wastage due to microfibers, which are causing a lot of damage to the environment. So you're expecting it to reduce wastage and protect the environment. It's doing the opposite. That's why it's ironic. I hope this is clear. Okay, let me know. So thrifting is connected to secondhand clothing. So that's why. So let's look at the options. Because it has created environmental problems. It has, and that is the irony of it. Because you expected it to protect the environment, it ended up creating environmental problems. So let's park this. Is an anti-consumerist attitude. What is that got to do with the RC? Is the RC talking about thrifting being anti-consumerist, and is that a discussion in the RC? No. How is that an irony? There is no connection. So this is out of scope. Okay. Is not cost effective for retailers. Okay. Thrifting is not cost effective for retailers. This is an assumption that you're making. But where is the irony here? Are we saying, is the discussion in the RC about retailers not making as much profit with secondhand clothing? Or retailers incurring a loss because of secondhand clothing? Or secondhand retailers not being profitable? No, this is not the discussion. So it's not related. Okay. And it's not the irony that we're talking about. Offers luxury clothing at cut rate prices. Why should this be an irony? Thrifting is meant to do that, right? Secondhand clothing is meant to be cheaper. This is not the irony in the passage, right? There is no irony here. So the irony here is because it creates environmental problems. That's the irony. All right. So the answer here is 1. This question, I mean, I would say it's medium to difficult. If you know the meaning of ironic, you would be able to crack this question, right? But yeah, still a medium to difficult question. All right. Let me know if you have any questions here. Let's go to question 3. Okay, Serene Sea Monster. Sorry, I totally forgot. Let's go back to question 1. So they were asking me, because I don't know the name and stuff. So they were asking me that if these guys don't dump in the landfills, the whole problem of secondhand clothing won't even exist, right? Okay, so you're talking about this one. All right. Think about it. If clothes were not thrown in the landfills, how would that solve the problem of secondhand clothing? So clothes are not being thrown and burnt in landfills, right? So I own a new shirt. It gets old. I don't throw it in the landfill. What I do is I go and sell it in a secondhand shop, or I sell it secondhand to someone. So secondhand clothing will still exist, right? Wastage due to the burning will go down, but the secondhand clothing will still exist because people can sell their clothes in these thrift stores or sell it to each other on a secondhand basis. So secondhand clothing would still be there, and that would still release microfibers. So the central idea of the passage doesn't get under. You get my point? Let me know if this is clear. Okay, awesome. Let's go to question 3. Okay, I'll run the poll. Take your time. No problem. Create a shadow answer here, people. Even before looking at options, go back, check, and then do it. See if your accuracy goes up with that. That's great. That's great. Good to know, Bharat. Um, that's really good. The poll is there. Jivika, the poll is there. I've run the poll. You can check it out. Bharat, but that's really good. Keep it up. Keep clearly you're on the right track then. So keep doing what you're doing and keep your practice, but not able to crack in the main exam. Okay, that's pressure. That's pressure. So see, this is a very common. I'll just talk about it till other people are solving it. It's a very, very common problem, and it's a very legit problem that, like I'm able to, when I'm practicing, I'm able to get all the questions correct. But when it comes to the mock or the exam, my performance really goes down. After the mock, when I relook at the passages, I'm able to get all the questions right. It's a very common concern that comes up, and it's a very legit concern. See, what is happening is in mock or in the exam, especially, you will be under tremendous amount of pressure. A lot is at stake, right? At least in your head. I mean, in reality, also in your head. In your head, it's probably like double what is the reality. It's just your brain, just like totally kind of elevates it. So it's the pressure that's causing you to get questions wrong or mess up easy questions and all of that. The only way out of that, Bharat, is to do as many full-length mocks as many mocks as possible. Okay, full-length mocks are better, but you can do sectionals as well. That is the way out of it. Because the more mocks you do, and mimic exam conditions when you're giving mocks, in the sense that give it very seriously. Give it like you're giving the actual exam. Of course, the pressure in the exam will still be higher, but do that. And the more mocks you do, the better you will get at managing the time. Okay, so that's one way out. Second is start practicing questions with a timer. Okay, so when you're doing an RC, whatever your time is, 10, 12 minutes, start practicing them with a timer. That will also get you better with time pressure. Okay. Still, Bharat, even if it was a trial attempt, your skills were different back then in November. And also, even if it was a trial attempt, CAT first time is quite a bit to handle. Okay, so don't worry about it. Your skills have also upgraded. So keep that take that into account. All right, people, I'll end the poll now. Okay, let's look at this. So this is how you voted. 47% of you are saying 2. All right, this is your first choice. 21% is saying 3, second choice. 15 is saying 1 and 4. So it's your third choice. Okay, all right. Based on the passage, we can infer that the opposite of fast fashion, slow fashion, would most likely refer to clothes that. So it's asking you, what do you think would be slow fashion? Keeping in mind the definition of fast fashion given in the RC. So the first thing that you should do is you should go back and understand what fast fashion is. Okay, that's not very clear in the RC. You'll have to think a little bit. Okay, so fast fashion is mentioned in the second paragraph. You'll get a trigger if you've read the passage effectively. It says the Secondhand September campaign led by Oxfam seeks to encourage shopping at local organizations and charities as alternatives to fast fashion brands such as Primark and Boohoo in the name of saving our planet. Okay, as innocent as mindless scrolling through online shops may seem, such consumers are unintentionally or perhaps even knowingly contributing to energy that uses more energy than industry that uses more energy than aviation. Okay, so Primark and Boohoo, read this again. The second-hand clothes are being projected as an alternative to fast fashion brands Primark and Boohoo. So kind of they're on opposite ends of the spectrum, right? You have Primark and Boohoo on one end, fast fashion, and then second-hand clothing on the other end. Can you infer this from the first paragraph? Because it's being projected as an alternative. So fast fashion brands are on B, and fast fashion brands are on A side of the spectrum. Second-hand clothing is on the opposite end or the B end. That's what you can infer from the paragraph. Okay, let's go back. So you have fast fashion, okay, which is Primark and Boohoo. I'm not writing Boohoo here, which is this side of the spectrum. And then you have second-hand clothing on the other side of the spectrum. Okay, and they're opposite. All right. So based on the passage, we can infer that the opposite of fast fashion would most likely refer to clothes that, all right, do not shed microfibers. Are fast fashion brands shedding microfibers? Is that the discussion in the RC? Think about it. What sheds microfibers? Second-hand clothing, right? Fast fashion brands are not shedding microfibers. If fast fashion brands were shedding microfibers, you could have said that, oh, slow fashion is the opposite of that. But fast fashion brands are not shedding microfibers. Second-hand clothing is shedding microfibers. We're looking for opposite of fast fashion. Shedding microfibers is not connected to that. Okay, all right. Are of high quality and long lasting. Okay, is fast fashion high quality and long lasting? Is fast fashion high quality and long lasting? And take first two paragraphs into consideration. Can you infer from the first two paragraphs that fast fashion brands are high quality and long lasting? And if you're saying no, I'm interested to know why you're saying no. Why you're saying no? I'll wait for your answer here. My question is fast fashion high quality and long lasting? Yes or no, and why no? No, wastages are high. Yes, absolutely, Lokesh. Very good. Yeah. See, the discussion, people keep that in mind. And that's why context is important. Don't just get stuck on one line. What does it say here? That they are even unknowingly contributing to an industry that uses more energy than aviation. And then it elaborates on it. Brits buy more garments than any other country in Europe. 300 tons of them end up in landfill. Right? It's connected to the fast fashion brands. So they get these clothes, the Brits get these clothes, wear them for a little while, and they're not durable, so they throw it. Then they go and buy more clothes from these fast fashion brands. So they just keep buying new clothes incessantly. So it's like use and throw, use and throw, use and throw. So it's all connected. So fast fashion is not durable. Fast fashion is potentially not of high quality as well, and that's what we can infer. So if it's not of high quality and it's not of durable, what would slow fashion be? Slow fashion would be opposite of that. Fast fashion is not high quality. Fast fashion is not long lasting. Opposite of that is slow fashion, high quality and long lasting. So we can infer that slow fashion is this. Let's park this. Are sold by genuine vintage stores. Fast fashion is new clothes. Fast fashion are not second-hand clothes. That's the whole discussion in the first two paragraphs. So saying that slow fashion is being sold by genuine vintage stores, that's not correct. Both are new. Both are new clothes. Fast fashion is not connected to secondhand. So the vintage discussion shouldn't even come into picture. Okay, even if you're looking for the opposite. Do not bleed toxins at dyes. This is also unrelated. Okay, fast fashion is not connected to secondhand. So that's why that shouldn't come into the discussion. The only option that is relevant is this. Slow fashion would be of high quality and long lasting. Both will be new clothing. Okay. All right. So this is the answer. Let me know if this is not clear. I'm more than happy to explain it. Give me a thumbs up if this is clear. Okay. All right. Let's go to question 4. To this one. Yeah, Lokesh, I would agree with you. Question 3 is tricky because the fast fashion definition is not clearly given in the passage, right? So you have to connect the dots and you have to sort of understand. And it's I'm not surprised that many of you got confused with the second-hand clothing because that's the main idea. So it is tricky. It's definitely a tricky question. I agree with you. Okay, I'll run the poll for this one. By the way, folks, this is a good time to just remind you or nudge you. If you're enjoying the session, finding it useful, please hit the like button on YouTube. That just helps us, the visibility of the video increases. So please do hit like if you're enjoying the session. And while you're answering these questions, I'm asking this because of the lag, right? Keep answering. I'll give you time. The last paragraph of the RC, how many of you found it difficult to understand? The last paragraph. Let me know in chat, which is what the question is based on. So let me know. Okay, I'll give you 30 more seconds. Okay, Lokesh is saying not difficult. Fair enough. Okay, last 10 seconds, people. All right, send the poll. Okay, so let's look at the poll. So 57% of you are saying 3. Okay. 28% is saying 2. 7% and 1 and 4 is 7%. Okay. All right. So this is based on the last paragraph. Okay. I'm happy to explain that paragraph. I remember when I read this RC for the first time, I found it a little tricky to understand that. Okay. And that's why I was asking you. I'd gotten the main idea of the RC when I reached the last paragraph. And the last paragraph seemed a little convoluted to me, but I had the main idea, so I didn't bother about it. So the point that I'm trying to make here is, sorry, we'll come back to the question. The point that I'm trying to make here is don't get stuck in an RC. Okay. See, here we had the last paragraph. Let's say, for instance, Antariksha says she found it difficult, right? If you found the last paragraph difficult, but you have a grip of the main idea so far, don't get stuck on the last paragraph. Read it, definitely. Don't skip a single word. Read all the words in the paragraph. But if you're not able to understand the last paragraph, don't panic. Don't think that you have to understand it to solve the questions. No, you have a good grip on the main idea so far. That's fine. Even if you didn't completely understand the last paragraph, whatever you have as the main idea, try to see if you're able to solve other questions. And here, the main idea was pretty clear before the last paragraph. And you could have solved 3 questions out of 4, even without understanding the last paragraph. So my point here is, don't panic and don't get stuck and don't think you have to understand everything. You have to extract the main idea when you're reading the passage. When there is a question focused on a detail, we come back and we try to understand it. If we understand it, we solve it. If we don't understand it, we skip the question. Okay, that's the point. All right, let's go back. So according to the author, companies like ThreadUp, which is mentioned in the last paragraph, have not caught on in the UK for all of the following reasons except. So it's an except question. So have not caught on in the UK for all of the following reasons except. So they haven't caught on. ThreadUp has not caught on in the UK, has not become popular in the UK. So 3 are reasons for that. 3 options are reason for that. 1 is not a reason. Okay, that's how the question is. So we have to point out the one that is not a reason for ThreadUp not catching up in the UK. Okay, so if except is confusing you, always say read it without except first. Okay, so according to the author, companies like ThreadUp have not gone there for all of the following reasons. So all 4 are reasons except 1. 1 is not a reason. Our job is to pick this. So first read it without except, then bring an except, then it won't be as confusing. And you can write it down on your notepad as well. 1, we're looking for not a reason. Okay, all right. So let's go back and understand the paragraph and then come back and answer it. So why hasn't ThreadUp caught up in the UK, and what are the reasons given by the author? Luxury brands would rather not circulate their latest season stock around the globe to be sold at a cheaper price, which is why companies like ThreadUp, a US fashion resale marketplace, have not caught on in the UK. Now understand what is ThreadUp. It's a US fashion resale marketplace. So potentially, it sells second-hand versions of luxury clothing. Okay, so it's a US fashion resale marketplace where second-hand luxury clothing is sold. And this has not caught up in the UK. And one of the reasons is luxury brands don't want to circulate their latest season stock on a cheaper price. See, luxury brands tend to be very brand conscious. Like think of Gucci and Prada and all these, hi-fi brands. Would they want their clothes, latest season clothes, be available at cheaper price? Second-hand clothing? No, that would probably destroy their brand image. I'm stretching a little bit, but that's what the sentence is saying. Luxury brands don't want that. Don't want their clothes to be on these resale marketplaces. That's one of the reasons ThreadUp hasn't been successful in the UK. So that's one reason. There will always be a market for consignment. Consignment here refers to second-hand clothing. But there's also a whole generation of people who've been taught that only buying new products is a norm. Okay, second-hand luxury goods are not in their psyche. So there are consumers who don't want to buy second-hand clothing. Ben Whitaker, director at liquidation firm B Stock, told Prospect that unless recycling becomes cost-effective, that means recycling right now is not cost-effective, and filters into mass production, high-end retailers would rather put brand before sustainability. High-end retailers don't want to recycle because one of the reasons is recycling is not cost-effective. Think of production now. When they're producing clothes, recycling at that time for them is very expensive. So that's why they don't recycle, because of course brands will look at profitability, right? So that's why they put brand over sustainability. Sustainability is connected to environment. So for them, brand is the most important. They don't go for sustainability because recycling is expensive, right? And also the other reason that we discuss is they don't want their latest season stock at cheaper prices to be available. So these are all the reasons because of why ThreadUp is not successful. Let's go back. Okay. Recycling is currently not financially attractive to luxury brands. This is a reason. Remember, we're looking for not a reason. So this can't be the answer. Luxury brands do not like their product to be devalued. Absolutely. That's what the first line says. They don't want their luxury products to be sold at a cheaper price. So this is a reason. We're looking for not a reason. The British don't buy second-hand clothing. Now, this is very attractive. Is this true? Look at the way the option is constructed. The British don't buy second-hand clothing. Is that true for the passage? British don't buy second-hand clothing? No, vintage clothing is very popular, right? Vintage clothing is very popular. And here also it says there will always be a market for consignment. But there is a whole generation of people who've been taught that. So there is both, is what the author is saying. But there will always be a market for secondhand. And previously also, it's connected to the discussion. We were talking about how it's popular in the UK thrift stores and stuff. So saying British don't buy secondhand clothing is not true. Not true. Okay, let's park it. So this is not a reason that our author is quoting for ThreadUp not being successful. Luxury brands want to maintain their brand image. Absolutely, they are brand conscious. They put brand over sustainability. So this is a reason we're looking for, not a reason. Okay. Yeah, this question can be tricky. If you found that paragraph tricky, again, question selection. If the paragraph was tricky for you in the exam, you should leave this question. All right. Okay, there's one question here. Ehsan is asking, I'll just go to that and then we'll quickly go to the next passage. So Ehsan is saying in question 3, it was nowhere explicitly mentioned that the clothes are being dumped due to the reason that they lack quality. How exactly did we come to that conclusion? Okay, all right. Good question, Ehsan. Let's talk about that. I think that's a good discussion to have. See, that's an inference that I was drawing based on these two paragraphs, right? See, here it says, alternatives to fast fashion brands. So that was secondhand. As innocent as mindless scrolling, consumers are unintentionally contributing to an industry that uses more energy than aviation. They're talking about consumers of Primark and Boohoo here. Okay, or consumers of fast fashion brands like Primark and Boohoo. That's the connection. Brit buy more garments than any other country in Europe. Okay, 300 tons of them land up in landfills. Okay, waste of this, clothes, as ecologists, the mismanagement of a waste has even come back to haunt us on a dinner plate. Okay, so I'll tell you how I'm drawing this inference. This discussion plus the fact this is called as fast fashion brands. I'm not using external knowledge. I honestly, when I was solving this passage the first time, I didn't know what fast fashion was. Like I didn't immediately connect it. But if I connect fast fashion to this discussion, I can come to that inference. I can draw that inference that, these are probably medium quality or not great quality clothing, which is like you wear it and then get rid of it pretty quickly. Okay, so the word fast and this discussion helped me to come to that inference. And then I came to the answer. Does that make sense? Let me know, Ehsan. But that's a good question. It's not a very straightforward inference to draw, but yeah, that's the way to come to that conclusion, right? Because if it was of high quality and long lasting, right, it wouldn't have caused so much of wastage in landfill. So that's how we're solving it. Let me know if it's clear. All right, great, people. Awesome. Now let's go to the next one. Please open the document. Read the passage. I'll give you 5 minutes and then we'll start discussing it. Awesome, Ehsan. Thank you for confirming. Read the passage. We will read it with a lot of interest. So see, this is what I tell my students all the time. Read the RCs with interest because, come on, it's a lot is at stake, right? You want to score well and go to a great college. So this topic might not be interesting to many of you, but don't go in with that mindset. Tell yourself that I'm going to read it with a lot of interest and curiosity and energy. Say that and read it. You'll like it. You'll develop interest. And then broad. If you're finding it complex, extract a broad main idea and solve whatever questions you can solve. Go for it. Yeah, folks, take your time, no rush, but send me the main idea once you're done. Don't worry about if you're finding it difficult to form sentences because the main idea is complicated, you can even give me bullet points. Okay, that's also fine. Okay, I'll give you a minute more, folks. We start discussing. Are you done reading? Let me know if you can send the main idea. Great. Otherwise, just let me know that you're done, and then we can get started. It is a complex RC to read, but let me know. Done, folks? Should we start discussing? Just give me a thumbs up if we can start discussing, and then let's do it. Okay, great. Jivika has one. Ayush has another one. Good. Jivika says, according to author Deneen is partially correct about his thoughts on liberalism. The author provides reasons for why Professor Deneen is wrong. Yes, Jivika, definitely on the right track. You could have elaborated more in your main idea. That, what are the reasons, you could have, that's also part of the main idea. What are the reasons that the author gives when author says that Deneen is wrong? But you're definitely on the right track. Ayush says the author agrees with Deneen's take on liberalism and its evolution, but is not impressed on Deneen's conclusion of its failure in current times and states that there are solutions. Yes, definitely. Definitely on the right track, Ayush. But again, you guys could have elaborated a little bit on, what exactly are the problems that the author has regarding Deneen's critique of liberalism, and that part, if that could have been elaborated, your main idea would have been excellent. But definitely on the right track. Good job. Okay. Does not allow more characters. I understand. Okay, perfect. But good job on this. This is a complex paragraph, complex RC to comprehend. All right, so let's do one thing. Let's understand the main idea of this RC. Again, I'll broadly give it to you. Then later, tell me if you want me to discuss this passage. I'm more than happy to discuss it, especially this one because it's complicated, right? But we'll have to do it at the end in the interest of time. Okay. Now, one tip that I can give you for comprehension is wherever possible, try to figure out a structure of the RC. Okay, if you're able to do that in your head, that okay, the RC is structured like this, right? That will enhance your comprehension. Now, it's not possible always because authors write in different styles. Sometimes some of them have a great structure, sometimes some of them are not. They go around in like circles, right? This one has a structure if you think about it. So if you're able to identify that, it will enhance your comprehension. So I'll give you that structure. See, in the first paragraph, what the author is focusing on Patrick Deneen's critique of liberalism, the first paragraph, right? Where the author says that Patrick Deneen is criticizing it very, very strongly, because Patrick Deneen says that it's disintegrating, destroyed by a mix of hubris and internal contradiction. By the way, I love this word. I'll talk about it later. Not the meaning, but just the pronunciation. And internal contradiction. So this is Patrick Deneen's critique of liberalism. That is the first paragraph. The second one is where the author starts disagreeing with Deneen, right? And that happens in the second half of the second paragraph. He says that, but when he concludes that all this adds up to a failure of liberalism, is his argument convincing? Here he's agreeing with it. He says Deneen does an impressive job of capturing the current mood of disillusionment, blah, blah, blah. But suddenly here the author changes tracks. Always be conscious of the turns that the author is taking in the RC. So now I'm saying, but when he concludes that all this adds up to a failure of liberalism, is his argument convincing? And then you know that the author says, no, the argument is not convincing because of two broad reasons. Okay, so here in the first half, the author agrees, but the second paragraph is focused on why the author doesn't agree with Deneen when Deneen says that all of this adds up to a failure of liberalism. So one reason, so this is the author going against Deneen. One reason for that is given here. And then this one is the second reason as to why the author doesn't agree with Deneen. Okay, so first we have Deneen's critique, then the author's opinion about Deneen's critique, where the author says, I don't agree with it completely. These are my two reasons. And then here, you know, the author accepts it. The conclusion is that, you know, Deneen is right in some ways, but there are alternatives. There is a solution. We can come out of this. Liberalism hasn't completely failed. It is going down. The track record is dismal, but there are ways out of this, is what the author says. So again, this is an author's opinion. Okay, so just to summarize, the structure is Deneen's critique in the first paragraph, the author's assessment of that critique, one reason, then the second reason, and then the author's opinion, where the author is saying, I do agree with Deneen, but I also don't agree that liberalism has failed. There is a way out of it. Okay, all right. So wherever possible, figure out a structure. Sometimes the structure can be problem solution, right? A problem is given and then the solution is given, right? So whatever structure, sometimes the author will give you the problem, and then in the RC will give you three details of that. So we'll explain the problem statement very broadly and then give you details about that. Detail 1, detail 2, detail 3 with no solution. That's also possible. So wherever possible, figure out the structure. Okay. All right. So the main idea is exactly that, people. And let's just summarize it. Okay. We can say that, you know, we have Deneen, who is against liberalism. Okay. Says that liberalism is a failure. Okay. Then we have the author who disagrees with that point. He disagrees with Deneen when Deneen says that liberalism is a failure. The author says, no, liberalism is not a failure. And then the author gives you two reasons for that. Okay. One reason is the fact that where the author hints that Deneen's sense of liberalism is not correct. Okay. That's the first reason, that the sense of liberalism that Deneen has extracted is not completely correct. And second, that liberalism has, my writing is horrible, has the capability to reform itself. So that's why the author has hope. That's why liberalism is not a failure, according to the author. And the conclusion is that, okay, that's pretty much the conclusion, that liberalism has there are problems, but liberalism has the capability to reform itself. It has happened in the past. It can happen again. This is the main idea. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Let me know. My writing is horrible, but if you want me to discuss the passage towards the end, I'm happy to. All right. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's go to the questions now. Okay, take your time with these questions. I'll start the poll. Okay, in the meantime, Lokesh is saying that this is the kind of RC I'm reading twice. Fair enough, Lokesh. It's abstract. See, this is abstract RC, right? The first one was concrete. This is abstract because it talks about liberalism and it's an idea, right? It's political philosophy. So that's why you're reading it twice because you're not used to reading such content, right? And most people find abstract content difficult. So this is where now you have to start pushing yourself to read more and more. So in your leisure reading, consciously incorporate philosophy of different kinds, right? That'll help you. Okay. And read it slowly. When it's a complex RC, go little slower than your natural, little slower. And I always say this, when you're encountering complex content and you've decided to solve it, don't get stuck on details. Always, it's okay. You can extract a broad main idea and then solve whatever questions you can solve with that. Okay. So think about those points. Okay. Folks, take your time with this. I'll give you some extra time because I know it's tricky. Yeah, I'll give you a minute more. A minute is a lot of time, so don't rush. But yeah, let's close it in a minute's time. Okay, last 30 seconds. Last 10 seconds. All right. Now, 38% of you are saying 1. Okay. Then 30% is saying 3 and 4. Okay. So this is second choice. And then no takers for 2. So I'm not going to mark that as well. Okay. So this is clear. You can see the votes percentage, the way you're split. So it's a tricky question, right? Tricky passes, tricky questions. Let's understand this question. The author of the passage faults Deneen's conclusions for all of the following reasons except. So 3 are reasons as to why the author faults Deneen's conclusions, or say, in other words, say that Deneen is not correct. Deneen is wrong. 3 reasons are valid reasons. 1 is not a valid reason. Our job is to pick that option, which is not a reason for the author faulting Deneen's conclusion. That's what the except means. You can note it down. 1 not a reason and mark it, and then if that's confusing, right? So 3 are reasons, 1 is not. Now, you can go back and create a shadow answer. We discussed that as part of the main idea as well, right? See, the author is saying that Deneen is not correct. And there are broadly 2 reasons as to why the author mentions, as to why the author believes that Deneen's conclusions are not correct. One is here, and the second one is in the next paragraph. Let's read that. So here it says, but when Deneen concludes that all this adds up to a failure of liberalism, is this argument convincing? And the author says no. He argues that the essence of liberalism lies in freeing individuals from constraints. This is what Deneen believes in. That the essence of liberalism, the core of liberalism, is freeing individuals from constraints, like liberating people, is what Deneen believes. Then the author says, in fact, liberalism contains a wide range of intellectual traditions which provide different answers to the question of how to trade off the relative claims of rights and responsibilities, individual expression, and social ties. Liberals experimented with a range of ideas from devolving power from the center to creating national education systems. So here the author is countering the essence of liberalism that Deneen thinks is the essence. Deneen says the essence is freeing individuals from constraints. The author says, no, this is not completely correct. Liberals experimented with a range of intellectual ideas to answer this question. So it's not as simple, or it's not as basic as saying that, oh, this is the essence of liberalism. The author doesn't agree with that. So that is the first reason. The author doesn't agree with Deneen's essence of liberalism. I hope this is clear. The second reason is, and this is the author's major problem, Deneen says liberalism is failing. Author says, okay, I agree that there are severe problems, but liberalism has proved in the past that it has the capacity to reform itself. So saying that it's a failure is not true, because it can very well reform itself in future again. That is what the second paragraph is saying. So this is how the author is countering or faulting Deneen's conclusion, right? Let's look at it. First one, it's repeated harking back to pre-modern notions of liberty. Is Deneen going back to pre-modern notions of liberty? Answer this question in chat. Is Deneen going back? Where is pre-modern notions of liberty mentioned? And just because it's mentioned in the RC doesn't mean it's the correct answer. You have to see in what context it's mentioned, right? Where does it say pre-modern notions of liberty? Let's see this. So, yes, there you go. He's also right to assert that the world has much to learn from the pre-modern notions of liberty as self-mastery and self-denial. Okay, is the author disagreeing with Deneen here? Right. So thank you, Janvi. Is the author disagreeing with this? The author is saying Mr. Deneen is right to point out that the record in recent years has been dismal. Okay. He's also right to assert that the world has much to learn from the pre-modern notions of liberty. Okay, I take back my explanation. Sorry, that was not the right explanation. Deneen seems to be going back to pre-modern notions of liberty, but the author is agreeing with Deneen, right? The author is saying that he's right to assert that the world has much to learn from the pre-modern notions of liberty as self-mastery and self-denial. The author is agreeing with it. The author is not faulting his conclusion for this reason. This is one of the points that the author agrees with him. We are looking for faulting the conclusion. So let's park this. Its failure to note historical instances in which the process of declining liberalism has managed to reverse itself. Yes, this is the second reason. Liberalism has the capacity to reform itself. It's done it in the past. So saying that it's a failure is wrong, because it can very well reform itself in the future as well. So this is a reason. It's very narrow definition of liberalism limited to individual freedoms. That's what we discussed, the essence of liberalism. The author disagrees with Deneen's essence of liberalism. Its extreme pessimism about the future of liberalism today and predictions of an ultimate decline, it's connected to number 2. It's connected because Deneen is being very pessimistic. The author says, no, we have past data. It has reformed itself. So 2 and 4 are connected. 1 is not the reason. The author is agreeing with Deneen on this, and therefore 1 is the answer. Okay, tricky one, definitely tricky one. But like if you got the main idea, if you understand the passage, to a reasonable extent, and spent enough time on this question, you would have gotten this correct. But still, it's a tricky question. Okay, all right, perfect. Let's go to the next one. We'll have to pick up a little bit of speed here, folks. But yeah, I'm more than happy to answer any questions if something is not clear. Right, folks, take another 30 seconds and then we'll start discussing. It's a tricky question, I know that, but yeah, let's solve it and then go for it. Janvi saying, I feel if there's a control F function, it helps for these kind of parses. Yes, yeah, it would, but they would never give you that, right? Because the whole idea is to comprehend and answer it on your own. So yeah, control F will make things life a little easier. But unfortunately, there is no function like that. In fact, I'll tell you something funny. I remember this, I think it was last year or the year before that. And, some student thought that there is a control F function. And this myth for them got cleared in like November, which was crazy, right? The student was a little lost. And they actually thought there is a control F function. And then 15, 20 days before the exam, they realized there's no control F function. So I think they were solving RCs all this while with the control F function, but then, yeah, and then realizing that it's not there 15 days before the exam is bound to hurt. Okay, I'll end this poll now, people. Okay, right now, look at the way you voted. Right, 50% is saying 2. Okay, so that's your first choice. 40% is saying 3. It's pretty close. 10% is saying 1, and no takers for 4. Okay, let's discuss this. It's a tricky one. The author of the passage is likely to disagree with all of the following. Now, again, read it without except first if it's confusing you, and it's also there's disagree. It's kind of like double negative. Read it without except. So the author of passage is likely to disagree with all of the following. So they're going to disagree with all of them. 4. Except. Except means except 1. So 1, they will not disagree. Okay. So 3, they will disagree, likely to disagree. 1, they are likely to not disagree. And our job is to pick this one, right? So 1 where the author is likely to not disagree. And 3 is where they are likely to disagree. Okay, so this is confusing you. Solve it like that. Write it down in a notepad in the exam also. Then you know that you're talking, but otherwise, while solving the question, sometimes you can get confused. Okay, all right, let's look at it. The sense of liberalism lies in greater individual self-expression and freedoms. Is the author likely to disagree with this? Think about it. This assents is similar to Deneen's assents, isn't it? You can go back and check. Deneen says that. Deneen says the essence of liberalism lies in freeing individuals from constraints. Okay, and the author disagrees with that. So the author is quite likely to disagree with 1 because this is not the author's sense. This is Deneen's sense. Okay, so this is not an answer. We're looking for not disagree. Okay, liberalism was a dominant ideal in the past century, but it had to reform itself to remain so. Would the author agree or disagree with this? Think about it. So liberalism was the dominant ideal in the past century. The first paragraph says that. Okay, that over the past 4 centuries, over the past 4 centuries, liberalism has been so successful that it has driven all its opponents off the battlefield. So that is there. The author would agree with the first part of it. Break it up. It's always good to break them up. So this is fine. But it had to reform itself to remain so. The author would agree with this as well. That's what the author is saying, right? That, it was successful, but it got into problems in the 19th century as well, but it reformed itself and got out of it. So the author would agree with that, is likely to agree. Okay, remember we're looking for likely to disagree. The author is likely to agree with this. Let's park this. Okay, claims about liberalism disintegration are exaggerated and misunderstand its core features. Now look at this first. Misunderstand its core features. This is the problem that the author has with Deneen. Okay, so the authors misunderstand its core features. That's fine. Okay. Claims about liberalism disintegration are exaggerated. Would the author agree with this? Think about it. Is the author indicating that Deneen's claims are exaggerated in any way? Or is the author saying that, okay, I do agree with some bits, but I don't agree with some bits? Right? The author actually says that Mr. Deneen is right to point out that the record of liberalism in recent years has been dismal. Okay. He's also right to assert that the world has much to learn from the pre-modern notions of liberty as self-mastery and self-denial. So the author is agreeing that there are problems with liberalism. Okay, so nowhere does the author indicate that Deneen's claims are exaggerated. All right, let's go back. So the author is likely to disagree with this. Now, this is tricky. Think about it because this seems like an attractive option. And I'm not surprised that this is your second choice. But this part, right, the author is not indicating that anywhere. Right, the author is being open enough, agrees with Deneen that it has been dismal. It is going on a downhill. So disintegration, the author also agrees that disintegration is happening, but there is a way out of it. So this part the author is likely to disagree because the author doesn't believe that the claims of disintegration are exaggerated. Okay. All right. If we accept that liberalism is a dying ideal, we must work to find a viable substitute. The author doesn't talk about finding a viable substitute to liberalism. The author talks about reforming liberalism. The author agrees that it's disintegrating, but it can reform itself. The author doesn't say we should look for a substitute. Okay. So this is the author would disagree with this. Second is the option that the author would not disagree. All right, tricky one. Okay, let's go to question 3. Folks, if you're enjoying the session, definitely hit the like button on the YouTube live stream, which helps us, and subscribe to our channel if you're not already subscribed. I do this every Friday at 8 p.m. We will continue till the 23 papers are over. You can watch the last 3 sessions for slot 1. Next week, we'll continue discussing the remaining 2 RCs of slot 2, pre-read them and come. And then after that, we'll do verbal ability of slot. Then I'll finish slot 3. Okay. Past year papers, I've been doing this for like many years now, so you can see all the past year papers. We'll create a playlist if it's not already there. Okay, people, I'll give you 30, 40 more seconds. Okay, and then we'll discuss it. Question is actually quite tricky. If you've noticed, this is one of those passages where the content is tricky and the questions are also tricky, right? I don't know if you've sort of noticed that or observed it, but I feel like in slot 2, this was one of the trickier passages. There were options which were better. Like the first one was clearly better than this one, right? So I think you'll have to develop that ability as well. And one way, and again, there are no clear rules here, but one way is concrete versus abstract content. Abstract content, if you're not used to reading about like philosophy or psychology, right? Abstract is basically where it's not tangible. It's not talking about something physical, right? It's talking about like liberalism and all these ideas. So abstract content tends to be more difficult. Concrete content, let's say if it's about secondhand clothing or self-checkouts or technology or AI, that's concrete, right? That contents tends to be easier. But again, there's no rule like that, but you can keep that in mind when you're selecting persons. Let's end the poll now. Right. Ayush, I do agree with you. I do agree with you. I would have probably, to be very honest, if I would have encountered this in an exam, I would have probably skipped this question. Okay. Like when I was solving it for the first time, I was like, I had to like really think through it because it's tricky. All the four options seem relevant. It's very difficult to pick out the one that's not. So it's a tricky one. Okay, look at the way you voted. You'll see that 40% is saying 1 and 4. Sorry. So this is your first choice, and this is also your first choice. And then 10% is saying 2 and 3. So this is your third choice and third choice. Okay. All right. Let's look at this. All of the following statements are evidence of the decline of liberalism today, except. So all four statements are evidence except one. Our job is to pick the one that is not evidence of liberalism decline. Okay, and make sure to always answer the question. We are talking about evidence for decline of liberalism. All these four statements are present in the RC, right? But one statement cannot be considered as evidence of decline of liberalism. So keep that in mind. Always remember you have to answer the question. Okay. There are a lot of times what happens is the options are aligned with the RC. In this case, they're all aligned with the RC. But does it answer your question? Did the author give that as a reason or evidence for decline of liberalism is the question that you have to ask yourself, right? So that's what we're looking for. Okay, let's look at it. So the author, of course, does mention that, Deneen says liberalism is declining, and the author sort of gives different reasons for that and stuff, right? Okay, number one, the creation of a business aristocracy, the rise of vast companies. Now, first you have to go back and check where was it mentioned. This was mentioned in the third paragraph, right? Yes. Okay. So it says the late 19th century saw America suffering from many of the problems that are reappearing today, including the creation of a business aristocracy, the rise of vast companies, the corruption of politics, and the sense that society was dividing into winners and losers. And then the author goes on to say, in 19th century, the liberalism managed to reform itself. These were problems with liberalism in the 19th century, right? These were reasons why liberalism declined in the 19th century. And the author is saying many of these problems are reappearing today. So isn't this evidence for decline of liberalism? Creation of a business aristocracy, rise of vast companies? It's the same problem that's reoccurring from the 19th century. This contributed to the decline of liberalism. At that time, it's contributing again. So this is a reason for decline of liberalism. Okay? So this is not an answer. We're looking for not evidence of liberalism decline. Okay. And technological advances are reducing ever more areas of work into meaningless drudgery. We'll come back to this option. This question is best solved by elimination. So we'll come back to it. Okay. Democracy has denigrated into a theater of the absurd. This is in the first paragraph. Go back and check. Democracy has denigrated into a theater of absurd. Isn't this a reason for the decline of liberalism? The author says now it is disintegrating, destroyed by a mix of hubris and internal contradiction. Hubris, by the way, means arrogance. Okay, please add it to your vocabulary, check the pronunciation later and stuff. It means arrogance. And internal contradictions. According to Patrick Deneen, equality of opportunity has produced a new meritocracy. So a lot of things in democracy has denigrated into a theater of the absurd. This is a reason for declining of liberalism. The Deneen is connecting democracy with liberalism. So this is a reason. Okay, let's go back. This is not our answer. The gap between liberalism claims about itself and the lived reality of the citizenry is now so wide that the lie can no longer be accepted. This is mentioned in the first paragraph. If this is true, people, definitely liberalism will decline. People who believe in liberalism, their lived reality is very different from what they were told. They were promised something, that if liberalism ushers, you'll get these advantages, but the lived reality is different. If that starts happening to the citizenry and the believers of liberalism, they won't believe it anymore, and then it would decline. So this is evidence. What is not evidence is this one. It's very tricky. Okay, so let's go back and check. It says, let me just clear this. Democracy has denigrated into a theater of the absurd, degenerated. Sorry, I keep saying denigrated. I was degenerated. Sorry about that. Degenerated into a theater of absurd, and tech advances are reducing ever more areas of work into meaningless drudgery. Fine, this is mentioned in the same sort of para, but is this the reason for decline of liberalism? Think about it. Tech advances, reducing ever more areas of work into meaningless drudgery. Is that why liberalism is declining? Is that direct evidence for the decline of liberalism? Not really. The other three, if you look at it, they look like direct evidence for decline of liberalism. But the second one, although mentioned in the same context, is not evidence, direct evidence, especially as compared to 1, 3, and 4. Okay, so while 1, 3, and 4 are direct evidence, 2 is not. And that's why 2 is the answer. All right, very tricky. Very, very, very tricky. This question should have been skipped. All right, okay, let me know if you have any questions. Let's go to question 4, just in the interest of time, but I'm more than happy to discuss it. Go for it, people. Let's solve this one. Yeah, Ayush, what you're saying is correct. The tech advances, we can infer that they're a result of liberalism, right? So that's a good thing for liberalism, right? We cannot hold tech advances responsible for the decline of liberalism. So that's why I think that's also one of the reasons it's not the answer. But you are right in the sort of the inference that you're drawing. Okay. Janvi saying, in order to decode this question, I feel like I'm missing the main point. You're talking about question 3, Janvi, or question 4? I think you're talking about question 3, right? Three. Okay, we'll come back to it. I'm happy to discuss it. See, the main point remains the same. Don't get confused. Deneen is saying that liberalism is a failure, is declining, it's going to like vanish and all of that. Then the author agrees with it on some counts and then disagrees with it on like 2 major counts, right? And then the author says that it has the capacity to reform itself. So, we can't sort of say that it's dead or it's dying. It can reform itself. It has reformed itself in the past. The main idea remains the same, but I think I know where your confusion is coming from. We'll come back to it. Okay, people, I'll give you 30, 40 more seconds and then let's wrap it up. I'll end the poll now. Okay, another tricky one. I think most of these, probably one question is okay, but most of the questions are tricky in this one. You're going with 4, that's your first choice. Then 3 is your second choice. 14 is your third choice. Okay, all right. So this is a why question. Why is the author saying this? You have to dig deeper into these questions, right? The author of the passage refers to the Davos elite to illustrate his views on. So why the question is asking, rephrase this question, why is the author bringing up the Davos elite? What is the purpose? The author has mentioned the Davos elite, right? And there is a sentence where they say that they use private planes and all of that and everything. So why is the author saying this? What is the purpose behind including the example of Davos elite is what the question is asking. So go back and first understand it. Shadow answer, very important. See, the author says, the gap between liberalism claims about itself and the lived reality of the citizenry is now so wide that the lie can no longer be accepted. Okay. Mr. Deneen writes, what better proof of this than the vision of 1,000 private planes whisking their occupants to Davos to discuss the question of creating a shared future in a fragmented world? Think about that scenario that the author has given you. They are discussing a shared future in a fragmented world. Okay, where you have a fragmented world is like inequality, right? Inequality, divide between rich and poor. Okay, and then the environment is probably damaging or whatever, the earth is dying, whatever, right? These people are discussing about the possibility of creating a shared future for a fragmented world. So they are claiming, or they're appearing to think about the poor as well. It appears that they're thinking about the underprivileged sections of the society, isn't it? That's what it appears like. But it's hilarious, right? I mean, they're meeting for a convention in Davos. And how did they reach there? In their private planes. Private planes are owned by the rich of the rich. So look at this irony here. The rich of the rich sitting on the table, sitting in this fancy room in a 7-star hotel, and talking about creating a shared future in a fragmented world. Right? So it's hilarious. It's irony at its most brutal. Right? So that's what the understanding is. Now let's go back and let's try to solve the question. So the author of the passage refers to the Davos elite to illustrate his views on. So why is the author saying that? Number one, the way the debate around liberalism has been captured by the rich who have managed to insulate themselves from economic hardships. Okay. All right. This can be an attractive option, right? But we are not talking about debate around liberalism here. Is the Davos elite, were they discussing liberalism in any way? No. They were not discussing liberalism. So the author is not using this example and connecting it to liberalism. No. So there was no discussion in the Davos elite around liberalism. So this is not the answer. Okay. The fact that the rise in liberalism had led to a greater interest in shared futures from unlikely social classes. Okay. The fact that the rise in liberalism had led to a greater interest in shared futures from unlikely social classes. All right. Again, the problem with this option is the author mentions the Davos elite with a very strong negative connotation. Right? That connotation is not very negative in this option. So it doesn't seem like the right option. Okay. The unlikelihood of a return to the liberalism of the past, as long as the rich continue to benefit from the decline in liberal values. No, that is not the discussion here. That is not the discussion in the first paragraph. The unlikelihood of a return to the liberalism of the past. That is not the discussion, right? Let's look at fourth. The hypocrisy of the liberal rich who profess to subscribe to liberal values while cornering most of the wealth. This is what the author is highlighting. There is a negative connotation there. The author is highlighting hypocrisy there. And that's what the author says, 1,000 private planes. right? So they're extremely rich of the rich, but they are appearing to discuss about the underprivileged while cornering most of the wealth and contributing this inequality, right? So that is the reason. Okay, so the connotation has to be negative. That's the author's purpose behind it. Again, a tricky question. All right, so most of the questions in this RC were tricky. All right, people. So that brings me to the end of the session. I hope you enjoyed it. You can join us every Friday at 9 p.m. Okay, Janvi, I'll explain your point. Feel free to please stay back. But just very quickly, so we have a test series, right? If you're interested, you can enroll for it. We have a coupon code as well. It includes 26 full-length mocks, thousands of practice questions, past papers, all of that. It's available for 599, but the coupon code it's a 1,000 rupee off. So you'll get the details on chat. Okay. All right. Let me now go to, yeah, the details are there. Let me now go to what Janvi was asking. Okay, 1 second. All right. So see, Janvi, here, the main point, as I mentioned, I hope that's clear now. It's talking about evidence of the decline of liberalism today, right? And this is mostly, of course, this is Deneen's view, but the author also agrees with these points, right? Because the author is not completely disagreeing with Deneen. In fact, the author says that Mr. Deneen is right to point out that the record of liberalism in recent years has been dismal. So the author agrees that there has been a decline in liberalism and it's not been functioning. So I don't know if that confused you, because when you looked at this question, you said evidence of the decline of liberalism. Were you getting confused because you thought that, no, but the author is saying that the author is not agreeing with that? Was that the confusion? Think about it. Because no, the author does agree that it's on a decline. And there are statements that the author mentions. They might be Deneen's views, but the author agrees with them. Okay. But at the same time, what the author doesn't agree is that liberalism is not a complete failure. It has the capacity to reform itself. So the author is hopeful and optimistic, while Deneen is completely pessimistic. Okay. So here what's happening is, as I said, right, these three are evidence of the decline of liberalism today. But this one is not evidence of decline of liberalism. Yeah, this is a problem that technological advances are reducing areas of work into meaningless drudgery. It's a problem, but it's not evidence of decline of liberalism. Technological advance is a good thing. Liberalism is contributing to that. That's a good thing. So we can't say that this is evidence for the decline of liberalism. That's why this is the answer. Okay, sorry, you've given me the rationale. Actually, I was thinking that the 4 options were true, but unable to differentiate the one option which is not evident. It's very tricky. It's very, very tricky, Janvi. It's a very tricky question. You have to go by elimination. And I feel like the only way to differentiate is 1, 3, and 4 is direct evidence of decline. 2 is not evidence of decline. It's a problem, but not evidence of decline. Okay, that's what it is. So that's a very, very tricky question. Okay, perfect. Awesome, people. So we'll call it, I'll say good night now, and I will see you next week. Okay. If you have any questions, you can feel free to put them in YouTube comments. I'll get back to you. Yes, definitely an inference. Definitely an inference. Yeah, and it's a cryptic one. Okay. All right. Take care, folks.